lingerie. My background is actually branding and marketing. So I didn't really come from a design background, but I worked in fashion for most of my career. And having this passion, I think I never set to create a lingerie brand. I didn't know that's what I wanted to do. And then one day I literally woke up with the name, The Underargument, in mind. And the whole day I couldn't stay quiet at work. I was just, fuming with, I had so many ideas about how I could use lingerie as a medium to carry a message instead of just being another lingerie brand. And the quote we see on the screen is something that I've been saying for years, and that's the way I felt the day I came up with the idea of Beyond Argument, is the world didn't need a new lingerie brand. So if I was to set out to have one and create lingerie, I really had to have a strong USP and have a very clear differentiation. And it was going to be that the message of my brand and what I was trying to convey could exist even if it wasn't through lingerie. And that message is that individuality matters, and the brand really tries to advocate for the power of individuality.
It's wonderful. So I guess my next question to you is, when you began conceptualizing your brand, how did that evolve into your brand identity and its ethos and its authenticity? Because it looks to me like your brand is very much based in authenticity.
Yeah, I missed explaining earlier actually what the Underargument stands for in terms of a name. So it's a play on word with undergarment and arguments. And so I create capsule collections that are arguments against the norm. So for example, my very first collection you can see on the screen was called For Awesome Against Perfect, and I created For Identity Against Stereotypes. And each of them have a different mindset, different spirit. And what I'm trying to do with each piece of lingerie that I create is create a wearable reminder to embrace your individuality. So the concept really came through that, is how can I make something as personal as lingerie a real, tool for empowerment. And that's what I do through the way I name the collections, the way each product, you can't see it very clearly on the screen, but each product has a little label at the back that's a little reminder. So it might say things like, remember just to be real, remember to embrace yourself, remember, any kind of reminder in relation to the themes of the collection. And that's sort of how the concept of empowerment came through the product. And then it's also something that I wanted to look at sourcing in a different way as well, and make sure that I was creating a product that was empowering from the way it was made as well. So all the materials that I select or most of the materials I select are made in Europe. It's, French velvet, Swiss embroideries, French embroideries, Italian mesh. It's very premium materials that ultimately make you feel your best when you wear them.
So how do you go about finding the product producers, the material producers and the vendors that sew for you to create sustainable garments from something like lingerie, because lingerie is so specific. Yeah. And I know that's really important to you.
Yeah, it took me over 2 years. I often joke that I had a website, and it's not a joke, it's the reality. I had a website and a concept, and I had all the names for my collections before I had my first product even sketched. And that's probably because my background is marketing, probably also because, like I said, I wasn't just trying to set up a new lingerie brand. I had a brand identity and a mission that was quite strong, that needed to be core to the brand. And the sourcing, I took my time with it, because sustainability for me also means the people you work with. I use mind-made material, so it means that I need to counterbalance the effect of that with quality product that's durable. And I went to a lot of trade shows. I did a lot of research. I met with a lot of different embroiderers in Europe. And ultimately, that's also how I started designing the range, is through the inspiration from, seeing the craft and seeing the beautiful designs season on season that all the embroiderers were coming up with.
So when you design your brand, do you work in collections? I mean, like with regular seasons, like designers do, and then do you update every few months? And also, when you do a collection, how much of do you get feedback from your consumers, and does that ever play into what you're designing and how it affects your collection going forward?
I think in terms of like the structure, I'll work by month. Like I mean, COVID put a bit of a span into things, but the brand sort of launches a new theme every month. The styles might be different, might be similar from one like obviously the aesthetic of the brand is quite similar, but you might see like the embroidery you see on the screen, you might see coming into different colors based on the theme, for example. And the way I look at, so I don't really look at seasons, but obviously when you sell wholesale, you might have to. So I don't do things very traditionally because it's almost like a calendar of like 12 months ahead that I work with, but ultimately I then sort of layer on top the season for the buyers, because a lot of buyers are still used to doing autumn, winter, and spring, summer. So I'll still make my styles a little bit more summery or a little bit more wintry, whether that's the colors or the materials that I use. But ultimately, I'm not set in, collections for whatever season. It's more about the themes, and I try to I've got like in the pipeline, like I have up to collection like 19 for next year. So it's going to be every 4 to 6 weeks. There's going to be a new collection.
Okay. And then your vendors, do you ever develop new types of embroidery with them or new types of trims just out of the gate with them?
So
They're specific to your brand?
Yeah. So before I found I work with 2 key embroiderers. One sadly actually closed, and thankfully was actually bought back by another French embroiderer. So I was lucky enough to be able to keep the designs and continue producing some of my designs. But initially I thought I was going to create my own embroideries, and working with those people, like some of their designs are just so amazing. I don't design anything from scratch. I do sometimes ask for modifications. So it might be that there's a line I don't like so much, something I want to modify. I like the colors, obviously, is something that you can easily ask to be changed. But I kind of love having someone else's work mixed into mine. And that, like, I don't know, I think it's really cool to work with embroiderers, they're designers, and like just use those. So far, I haven't felt like using like designing my own, and I feel like usually I get very I get creative looking at those designs. So that's usually how I actually start sketching, is going through the fabrics first. I don't know if that's a common thing. I know that's my thing. But for example, the embroidery you can see here on the screen, it's sort of like a shell embroidery. It was just so nice, like imagining it on a bust. And I was like, okay, I'm going to design this. And that's how like the triangle shape came. I've got like a long line triangle for this range. That's beautiful. That's how it came to life. My very first collection was this embroidery with initially was laser cut. And then I wanted to create bigger sizes. So I kept it just embroidered to be a bit stronger. But that was also this just beautiful galloon that I felt would look so nice on a demi bra. And that's how the sketch came to life. So I get so inspired by the embroiderer's designs that I don't feel like even sketching my own so far anyway.
No, I understand that. I'm the same way. Fabric informs a lot of decisions. You get inspired by it. It's like a piece of art that you get to work with.
I think that's something I got a bit saddened by this year, because there is many trade shows, so I haven't seen new fabrics in a long time, which is good for my budget, to be honest, but it's not so good for me. Because you get so excited, like just next to me right now, like I've got like embroideries that I'm probably not going to use in another year or so, and you can't wait, like, because you always work like a year ahead, right?
Yeah.
And as a small brand, you don't want to go too broad with the different type of embroideries that you're using. Like you have to be careful about your MOQs and be mindful of your budget. So but yeah, I've got like little cuttings in front of me, really tempting me. And that's always how I get really, really excited about the new designs.
I know it's hard. It's like the new candy. You're like, I just want the new candy now. I want to play with it now.
Kind of get like, there's not a range that I dislike, but you sort of get over it. Like by the time it's out, you're like, yeah, I've been seeing this for a year, 2 years. So you're like
right.
on But what's nice is that because it comes out and people get really excited about it, like you feel excited about it again because
Yeah.
it's the first time for you. You've been working on it for a year, so that's quite cool.
So how many ranges have you done so far?
So there's 5 live. There's another 2 coming out before the end of the year. And then spring summer kicks in January. I've got like 5 new ranges, and then all my brand new. So like the next 5, there's like new elastics coming in. I'm testing. Like I'm experimenting with. I've been using velvet a lot, and I'm experimenting with really cool. I don't know if you can see them behind me actually. Now I've got a ribbed elastic here. But
Uh-huh.
there's like a bit of an ombre one that's really cool. It's quite technical. So it's like one color at the back of the elastic, and then it's woven with a different color on top. So it looks like a little ombre effect. It's beautiful. It's like a navy and like mustard color. It doesn't sound nice when I say it, but it honestly looks beautiful. And then I also have like a really cool stripy elastic. So for spring summer, I'm like trying to test lighter elastics and see how that works. So earlier you were asking me if I was taking people's feedback on for the designs.
Yeah.
I definitely do. So whether that's, you know, sizing in terms of how the product fits, or sizes, because it's lingerie, and for you to be an inclusive brand, you need close to 200, you know, sizes for your bras. And currently
Right.
I only have 40. So it's, and I say I only have 40, that's already a big number, but to me it's, you know, it's not big enough because, you know, there's only 40 types of women that can fit in it. But when I launched, to give you an idea, I only had 10 bra sizes. So it's
Wow.
little by little I add to the range, and it will never be enough. And so I'll, you know, I'm trying to find alternatives around this as well. Like I can't stock 40 sizes of bras because that would be a
Right.
lot of money and a lot
Yeah.
of dead stock. So what I tend to do is I have a core set that I know, you know, sells well, that I keep in stock, and everything else I do as pre-orders. So I work with my factory so we can do regular drops for people to place their orders. But
So how do you primarily sell now? Do you primarily sell online? Do you sell in stores?
it's been online from the start, but this year is the first year that I did wholesale. So I'm in a couple of stores in the US. I'm at Jonelle, which is a big online and brick and mortar lingerie retailer in the US. And I'm in Hong Kong, I'm in Japan, I'm in Spain, France, and I forget some, Russia. So yeah, so there's
Russia.
a couple of places, which is really cool. Like it's so random thinking your brand is in other countries, especially as a small
That's very
brand.
exciting.
Yeah.
So do you go and do you show the brand yourself? Do you have people that rep your brand for you there? Do you go to trade shows? What do you do?
So I did my first trade show in Paris at the beginning of the year, which was amazing. And so met a lot of buyers through that. And then I did another show in New York, which was equally amazing. And met a lot of, I think the show in Paris is usually a bit bigger and you've got more international people coming. And then the one in New York is more local people.
What
So
are the
it's
what are
been
the
good.
shows for students watching that may want to like look into this?
The one in Paris is called Salon International de la Lingerie, so International Laundry Trade Show. And
Okay.
it's well, the main one is the one in January. So it's in Paris every January. And then you have another one in the summer, which is more for like, there's more swimwear there than lingerie.
Mm-hmm.
The company that runs those is called, actually I think they've just changed name. So I'm just going to say how they were called. Eurovet,
Uh-huh.
EURVET. And they run Interfilier at the same time, which is where you can source your materials as well. So you have the lingerie trade show on one side, and then you have the sourcing trade show on the other side of the event across the same 3 days, which is like literally the best place on earth for people who love lingerie. Yeah, so I'm like, I don't know if it's going to happen in January this year, but I'm so looking forward to it. I really hope it does happen. It doesn't look too, you know, promising. I know a
Not
lot
right
of
now, yeah.
related to online shows, which, you know, aren't exactly the same, but it's still nice to be able to catch up with like new suppliers and catch up with your existing suppliers as well. So that's the main show, the Paris one, and then the one in New York. It's the same. It's called Curve New York. The one in New York.
Mm-hmm.
They run New York. They have one in LA. Like they sometimes have like different locations. So LA, I think they've done for a couple of years. They used to do Vegas before. Vegas, I think, was also more swimwear. I think they launched one in Montreal last year. So yeah, and I think Cabana as well in New York. They often do lingerie and swimwear, but they do more like general fashion as well. I've never done Cabana. I've only stuck to Curve. But yeah, so that was my first year doing the trade shows. So now I do wholesale, and I also have a couple of agents in different locations. So I've got one in the US, one in Japan, one in Italy. I'm in Italy as well. And then the rest of Europe I usually try to manage myself. I'm a one-woman band, so you can get a bit stretched out. So it's good to have other people being able to represent the brand as well. But it's it's not easy to find either. So I think
Well, okay, let me ask you, as a one-woman brand too, like, how do you, since you're a small retailer and a sustainable retailer, and there's all these fast fashion brands doing lingerie out there, how do you set yourself apart when people come to look at your brand? Like, how do you create a sense of worth that sets your brand apart? Because obviously you can't compete at the same price points they can't, and you shouldn't.
It's a tough one, and it's hard to educate the customer. I think initially when you launch your brand, the people that can get it will get it and won't challenge you so much on price, etc., etc. I think it comes down to how you sort of market your brand as well. And the transparency. I think that more and more, especially as a small brand, I wouldn't so much understand a brand starting with a fast fashion mentality, and cutting down prices and doing all these things. I think that when you cut down prices, ultimately someone is suffering along the line. For me, the prices that I put up are the tightest prices I can put out, because I was very mindful of, this is only lingerie. It is not something essential. It's a treat. And I want to use premium products, but I also want someone who comes from a background that might not be so privileged to be able to treat herself, even if it's once a year, even if it's once every 2 years, even if you just buy when, I have a promotion, but being able, when I have a discount, like I'm uncomfortable with high prices, even though my product probably is worth a little bit more than what I charge. And, and you live and you learn. So, like for me at the moment, that's the way I've been seeing pricing for me. Is I try, because I don't have such high overheads, I try to keep it as tight as possible. And when it comes to educating people, I think the more you're transparent about where you source your product, who your suppliers are, not so much into, you don't have to give their full details, but just, explaining that things are made in France and what it means to have embroidery made in France, because this is where embroidery was born in Europe. Explaining all these things adds value to your product. And I think the little attentions that you put in the product itself. So for me, because my brand stands for empowerment and the advocacy of individuality, having those little messages at the back of the product is something you don't see everywhere else. And then the ribbons, you can see that colorful ribbon that you can see on the product is actually my care labels. Those are my care labels. And instead of creating ugly care labels that you have to cut off, I created these colorful ribbons that you can then use as bookmarks. And there's a big thing with storytelling with my brand as well. So, all these things tie in. And I think that's the experience that you create. The experience you have buying from a small brand is, you'll never get that in a high street brand. It's virtually impossible.
It's very different.
You're also paying for that. You're paying for a certain level of respect of the production chain, and also, a special attention from the brand to you. There's a bit of a closeness.
I want to switch subjects for a moment and go back to your models and go back to how you present your product. So you show your product on such a wide range of women. They all look fantastic in it. I mean, across every body type, across everything, and which is really impressive. And it looks very elegant and looks very well made. So first, how do you go about choosing who you shoot your brand on, finding your models, and showing your range like that?
The reality is I don't choose the women that represent my brand. What I do is, like I mentioned earlier, storytelling is really big for me. And I feel like, especially as a woman, when you share your story to another woman, it's a way of allowing her to be herself and accept who she is and feel more comfortable with her own individuality. So because storytelling was such a big thing for me, I created something I call the anti-casting. And it's become a big thing. It's really core to the brand. It wasn't a marketing strategy, but what it means and what it is, women send me their stories based on the themes that I showed you earlier. So any collection theme, at the moment, there's 11 different themes that women can send a story for. And it ranges from stories about their relationship, stories about how they suffered with, expectations of perfection, for example, or they suffered through, stereotypes, or, like they talk about their experience of sexism. Like there's very broad topics that I touch on through the brand. And so they send me their stories, and the only thing I do is select the stories that I find are the most compelling, the ones that are seldom talked about. And I try to shed the light on, stories and women that might not always be heard, or points of view and mindsets that are not so broadly broadcasted. So the women that you see currently on the screen are women that simply shared a story, a personal story. And that's how I selected them. I don't see their faces before. I don't ask for photos. I don't know their measurements. I find out all of this the day of the shoot. Apart from the measurements, I do, after selecting their story, I obviously send them, so I can prepare for my shoot. I send them an email to find out what their sizes are. But yeah, we've managed to create all these beautiful photos. I have a fantastic photographer. Her name is Maina, and she's just really good at, making women comfortable. None of them are professional models. And yeah, it's just, it's been a very enriching experience. And that's really what I think is essential when you create a new brand. Like in fashion, unless you create a product that's innovative, you have to bring something new to the table. So maybe that's the experience. For me, it is the experience. Obviously, I love my designs. My designs are different, but the product remains a product that already exists. And I needed to develop something that was fresh and new and engaging, and that's the core of the brand. It's the anti-casting and trying to really empower women, across all touch points of the brand. So yeah.
The women must be so honored to be part of your photos. I mean, every one of them looks so stunning.
It really looks beautiful. And that's the thing, like I never had a bad shoot. So it's also, for me, when I hear, diversity is hard and this, like I didn't want to define what diversity was for myself. Like I am part of a minority group. I cannot stand feeling used by the media or by fashion brands and feeling like, oh, they tick that box. They put a Black person on an ad and that's done for the season. And then what do we do? And how do we top it up? How do we continue topping it up? How do we find someone even more different? And I just felt it was objectifying, and that there must be a more natural way of doing things. So for me, it comes through the anti-casting, which also means that it takes a little bit more time to see a visual representation of diversity potentially than it would if I was to cast a certain way. But I also think that the diversity that's represented at the moment is very boxed, it's very framed, and is framed by people that are not diverse themselves. So it's again the majority and the mainstream telling you what diversity is. So
Agreed. They're just trying to tell a narrative that they feel ticks a box, and that's it. And okay, we've done our due diligence now. We have a plus size woman. We have somebody who is a person of color, and then we're good. Now our brand is good.
And then you're sort of forcing people, because why diversity is important is so we can find a common ground of humanity, right? So people understand we have more in common that we have in our differences. And
which is so important right now.
Yeah, and when people do this, they just make others look like or feel like, there is a way to look. Yeah, there's a way to be black, there's a way to be disabled, there's a way to be, to have a certain, like, whatever sexuality you have. And again, you're just creating a new stereotype, because you're using it as a seasonal thing as well. So I think I wanted to take away the conversation, even when it comes to body positivity. A lot of the time I hear people telling me, it's so great what you're doing, your brand is so body positive. And I'm always like, no, it isn't. Because body positivity, well, for me, I mean, it is body positive in the sense that all bodies are accepted, but I still have restrictions of sizing because I, like I mentioned before, only have 40 bra
You
sizes
can only do so many sizes. Yeah.
at the moment. Um, I'm not looking, I'm not specifically saying I want whatever type of person, I want to represent whatever type of person. So sometimes for 5 shoots in a row, maybe not that many, but there can be profiles that are pretty similar across a couple of shoots. And it's because literally I don't see the people before the shoots. And because people that are more mainstream looking, i.e., white middle class with a certain type of story potentially, are more likely to feel comfortable sharing their story. But what happens is that when I have someone that looks like me, that also comes from a Muslim background, that also has all these different traits, when they take the risk, because for a minority, it is a risk to expose yourself because nobody knows your story and you've had to hide it for so long. When you start doing that, then I start seeing all the stories flowing. And I start seeing, and that's what I mean. Like when you start sharing your story, you really allow other people to be themselves as well, which is why it's so important. And it's more important to me that those stories are shared rather than the body types. And I'm not saying showing the body types is not important, but talking about about the reasons why you're showing it, or like basically creating a PR campaign around body types, for me, it's wrong. It's plain wrong.
It's still objectifying.
Objectifying. And I've had people tell me, oh,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter how it's done as long as it's done. Maybe they're right. Like maybe it's still, creating progress in a certain way. But
it's still better than what it was, but not for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. But it's still creating hierarchy. And that's what I have an issue with.
Agreed. So what else can I ask you? I mean, I know students would want to know, before you did lingerie, how did you get into lingerie? Were you a designer before that? Or what was your last job before you started your own brand?
I got into lingerie because I'm French, and it's something you fall into when you're very young. I don't know, like it's funny, like I moved to the UK, I was 20. And I remember like the frustration I had because there was not, like, in France, you walk down the street, there's 10 lingerie brands, 10 French lingerie brands. They're all beautiful. They're all very well made. I'm not bashing UK brands, but it's a very different style. And I was like, oh, I don't like it's a bit kinky, I think, in the UK. Like the main brands that you would see, there's something very sexual about it. There's something very, like, it's made for sex and it's made for someone else. It's not really made for you. That was my feeling, my interpretation of it.
Right.
And I was like, I want that lingerie that I feel empowered by for myself, that I don't show to anyone. Like, I mean, I always say, like, if you buy lingerie for your boyfriend because your boyfriend prefers you in a type of lingerie, like there's an issue. Like your boyfriend should like you naked. Like, the lingerie is not made for the man. So, or maybe it is, but that's not how I see it and how I use it myself or how I design it. So I've always had this frustration living in different countries and not being in France. And I would always stuck up when I was going back to France. So that was always in the back of my mind, that this passion was always something that was there. I didn't know that I was going to make anything of it. My background was, I was working in fast fashion before, in digital marketing and branding. So I worked for the likes of Miss Selfridge in the UK. I worked for Nelly.com, which is a huge Scandinavian brand, like similar to Ethos. And yeah, I worked for some brands in Australia as well. They were all fast fashion, all different age groups, or like I did a lot of like sort of like the 20s, and then I did a bit older when I moved to Australia, and then went back to a bit younger. And I think what was weird to me. Some of the brands like Miss Selfridge, especially at the time that I was there, the creative director was so inspiring, and she was quite technical, and she loved the story behind the garments. She had this massive archive of sequin dresses that, you know, I'm not a girly girl, but even I was like getting so excited, like walking down the archive. So the product was obviously central to everything, and that taught me a lot about creating a story based on a product. But then I've also worked with brands where it was just, you know, we were churning product, and there was no story. It was more, okay, these are the colors of the season. This is what worked last year. We're just amending that style that worked really well.
It's a plug and play. Yeah.
Plug and play. And it's, I mean, you know, it obviously works.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying that everyone needs to be small and, you know, but there was a lack of charm. And it meant for me working in marketing that I was doing what I hate people tell me that I do. I was lying to sell a product because there was not really a true story.
You're creating a faux story to try and make something appealing.
Yeah. And so I remember my little brother one day was like, so you do marketing, so what do? You just lie to people all day? And I was like that's
Thanks.
not how I feel. That's not what I feel I'm doing. But it, you know, I can understand why people would feel that way. And this is why you then have this like conflicted relationship with your customer as well, because they always feel like they're being used as well, that, you know, they're being missold something, that there's way too much profit on the product, which, you know, even for some fast fashion companies, sometimes it's not the case. Like, so anyway, it's been an interesting thing. And if anything, when I came up with the idea of the Underargument, then it made me feel like, okay, well, now I will try and do things my way as much as possible. And I'm actually starting with the story. I'm not starting with the product. Both of them have to come together. They have to be created in the most empowered and empowering way. And there's no compromising on that. And yeah, like, and I'll see how I go. And, you know, things change as you grow, as you become more popular, as, you know, there's a need for potentially different price points in your range. Like, there's different things that you need to adapt to. But as long as you keep, you know, the mindset that you set initially for your brand, as long as you keep at that from other fashion brands, because my brand is pretty new, but from the previous fashion brands that I've worked with, that I've seen struggling throughout, you know, the years, it's usually that when you lose that, when you're looking too much at your competition, like I make a point of not looking at other lingerie brands. The only time I do is at the shows. Like, so once a year, this is my treat to look at other lingerie brands, go shopping, and then that's it. And I, you know, like, because I don't want to be too influenced by what other people do. And, you know, I like start having a lot of friends in the industry, and I'm like not following their brands on Instagram.
No, you don't want to see it. Almost puts you in a box where you feel, oh, I can't do that. I think they did something similar, and I can't do that. They did something similar, and it creates limitations for you.
And I've seen myself do that, and I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? Just don't. As much as I love their brands, and I shop in their brands, like on and off, like when, you know, I allow myself to go and see other brands. But yeah, I can't see their images constantly, because you also feel sometimes like if you're not having a good week and you see something amazing that your designer friend is doing, you're like, okay, well, I might as well close shop. Like, like he's 10 times better than me. So yeah, so it's all these little things that I'm trying to avoid, and just so I can preserve the essence of my brand, and, you know, not get too distracted, and remember why I'm doing what I'm doing.
I think that's really important, what you just said, for a lot of students in particular, to know. It's like, to stay true to your own brand. Sometimes you don't need to see everything that's going on, and sometimes it's better not to, actually, and just follow your instincts, because it can be limiting. It can be super limiting. And you can have like FOMO. You can think, oh my God, why didn't I come up with this? Why didn't I do that? Oh, I should have shot this way. And, you know, sometimes it's just better not to know. So if you had like any advice to give for students who are thinking of going into lingerie, if they want to start out their own brand, what do you think their best course would be to take to like begin a brand? Lingerie, or actually any other brand, but let's specifically talk to lingerie.
I think, like, if you're, whatever brand you're starting, whatever business you're starting, whatever product you sell, like, you know, you sort of need to know your strength. Like, I'm someone, I love being involved in everything. I've got I need to understand how everything works. It doesn't mean that I have to do it, but I find myself doing a lot of things, and I find myself not liking it so much when other people do it. So, but it makes me learn. So I don't think the brand will always function like this. But what I'm trying to say is try and learn as much as you can from any aspects of the business, whether that's finance and accounting, or design if you're not a designer, or marketing and how to build your website. Like, try to not give things away too quickly, because you need to master them, because in like ultimately you're the only one who knows your brand. You know how you
Right.
want to feel. So when it comes to the overarching brand and the direction, like every single aspect of the brand you need to understand. Like, there's no area that you should be like, I totally don't understand that. I don't care if it's like, you know taxes and accounting. Like, you need to sort of get your head around it, and even like the sourcing, and really really try and like own every area of your business. um and then it depends what you, like I said, like I wasn't a designer. Like, I didn't know I could sketch something. I didn't know I could create, like, for honestly, for 2 years before I found the right fabrics and the right materials, I didn't know if I was going to be able to design something myself. And I was starting to think, maybe I need to partner with someone else and get someone else's designs. I was about to say, thankfully, it didn't work out that way, just because like I actually love that creative process. So I'm glad that something clicked in my mind, and I found the right suppliers and the right materials to excite me and get me creative and get the juice flowing. Um, but yeah, I think it's, be curious. I think people always say that, like, you have to be curious. You can't box yourself. Just don't think that having a beautiful product is not going to cut it. Unfortunately, that is probably not going to be enough. Like, you could be lucky and it might be enough, but it could be that you create something so beautiful, so well sourced, so everything that's too expensive, and that your market is this big. And so either you're happy with that, and then that's fine, or
Right.
you have to get real, basically, like with your brand. It's ultimately, you're doing something that you love, but you're also doing something that you're trying to sell, you're trying to deliver an experience, and all of this needs to be taken into consideration. And one big thing, if you were to ever get in lingerie, boy, it's expensive. Like, it's it is not a t-shirt. Just like, be prepared. There's a million components in a bra. You want to get your finance in order. You want to get your, you know, all of this, your suppliers, right? You want to potentially have backups, especially if you're producing things in, like, if you're in the US. I don't know how the industry is, but I'm pretty sure that a lot of factories are probably, suffering right now, and that a lot of factories have closed in the past. Like, it's similar in Europe.
Yeah.
You need to be on your toes, because what you know today might not be what you know tomorrow. So you can never feel rested that you now have the suppliers that you love. And certain things, like, there's a stress that comes with sourcing ethically, that people don't really talk about. Is there's we talk about sustainability, but because of all these factories that don't get enough work, they are not sustainable anymore sometimes. And so you can have bad surprises. Like, since I've started, I've had 4 suppliers, manufacturers closing down. So it's almost once a year. And yeah, it's things to take into consideration. So I'm not a big fan of plan B, but at least have that at the back of your mind when you're
Always have plan B. Yeah. I mean, even working for large companies, there would not be a season that went by where, some truck didn't fall into a river with all of our fabric in it, or something else happened. And it's always like, okay, what's the backup plan? We don't know when that's coming. What's the backup plan?
And yeah, and you definitely have to be ready for the roller coaster as well. It's not going to be like, don't be too optimistic. Basically, I'm like painting this horrible picture, but I'd rather
No, it's true though.
a little less optimistic. I watched I can't remember what I was watching the other day. It was a really interesting chat. And this woman was like, she was so tough on herself with her projections. And I think that's the way to do it. Like, be negative when you look at your numbers, be super aggressive. Like I said earlier, don't forget things like, transportation, taxes, all these things that are the reality of a business that we tend to forget, because they'll come and bite you in the ass in a second. So you want to be very, very tough on yourself. And there's no overnight success. So, like I said, for me, like, my first sketch didn't see the light of day before my second year working on the brand. really my brand has been running properly since like late last year. And it launched, I did like a my first capsule collection I launched as a test December 2017, January 2018. Things take time. And, you know, like maybe it might be quick for you, but what I'm trying to say is for those that, you know, if it takes time, it doesn't mean that things are not going right. It might just mean that, you know, that's the rhythm that you need to have. Like I had 3 jobs on top of this brand until a year and a half ago. So it's,
See that I think a lot of people really should hear that, you know, it's going to take a while to get it going, and just be prepared.
yeah.
And you may be working a couple jobs while you're launching your brand. And if you don't get things off the ground right away, just stick with it. It takes some work.
At the end of the day, like when I have like these roller coaster moments and I'm in the downhill part of the roller coaster, I always remember that it was almost like divine the way the name of my brand came to me and the way all these ideas came to me when I wasn't a designer to start with. So I'm trying to like, you know, and I'm creating something with the anti-classing that's a movement that's bigger than me and that has been empowering women and that's getting a lot of women excited. There's a reason why those ideas come to you. There's a reason why you have the creativity that you have. Everybody
Totally.
has purpose. Once you found it, you know, it might be, and I'm trying to remember this for myself because I don't know what can happen with my brand tomorrow. If I was to ever fail, if someone is to ever fail with something that felt like their purpose, that purpose hasn't died. Like
Right.
my next collection is called For Failure Against Regrets. And that's the thing, is like you're actually the most courageous person for, like Renee Brown says, to get in the arena and, you know, try to create something. Like you're the brave person. If you hadn't done anything and stayed safe, you know, obviously it would have been easier on your ego, but you would have been feeling regrets and you would have, you know, you would have had that real FOMO. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, it's important to plan, but it's also important not to doubt the reason why you're coming up with all those great ideas. There's a reason behind it.
I think that is such an important point for particularly, you know, students to hear, is that like, if you think about every great person that's come up with a great book or a great, could be an app, it could be a brand, it could be in anything, you know, why are you bringing it into the world? And it's bigger than yourself. You're just the one bringing it to life. And it takes a great deal of courage, but if you don't do it, that particular thing is not going to happen.
I heard something, oh, I can't remember again. I forget who that was. I think maybe that was a book that I read. It might have been Deepak Chopra, I think. But anyway, the person was saying people receive ideas. Like we always think, like, you know, sometimes you see something, you're like, oh, why didn't I think about this? Or, oh, I had this idea and, you know, I had this idea first or whatever. And he was saying like, sort of like, I'm getting a bit spiritual, but that the universe gives you an idea and the universe wants this idea to come to life, whether it's through you or someone else.
Exactly.
So, you know, ride that wave. Like if you come up with an idea and you really feel that butterfly feeling when you have a good idea.
Or goosebumps. Yeah. You get those insane goosebumps. Yes.
Yeah. You have to follow through with that. I think that's really important. But yeah, always keep one foot on the ground at least, like just so you don't end up living on someone's sofa for the rest of your life. Just make sure that you have a backup plan.
It's awesome.
And something else I would say as well, I just want to show you like some of these photos from the factory. For me, like my factory, I love them to death. Like they're based in Madagascar. They're a factory that really gives back, and they use part of their profit to run a local school that helps the kids, the local kids that often sell on the streets and haven't been able to potentially ever go to school, to get a level to a level so they can enter public schools. And they have this really cool thing. They have a veggie patch at the back of the factory, so they make sure that the kids have a fresh meal every day. And I think when you source your suppliers, you don't want, like, you're going to talk to those people every single day. You want to work with people that you love. Like they're going to be your family.
So important. Yep.
You want to work places you want to travel to. You want to be there. Like you want to be with those people. You're comfortable going there. You want to love them. It can't just be a commercial relationship because it will make your life so painful. And so I think that, yeah, when you source, like look at how you get involved with the local community as well, especially if you source overseas, like outside of your country.
Absolutely.
Important to know how things are done. And, you know, a lot of great factories overseas, sometimes they vilify, but a lot of great factories do a lot for their local communities. And if you can be part of that too, that's amazing. So, or if you can develop something with them potentially, like there's so much goodness that can come through fashion. And I think that's what the Underargument is trying to do, like out of a garment that's pretty shallow, you know, creating something much deeper on all level. So I think, yeah, that's one thing that I would urge people to consider when they're starting their new brands as well.
It's so huge. How do they treat their people? How do they treat them? How do they treat the community? How do they do their business?
Yeah.
Do we have any questions from anyone that's like written in, or?
I am chiming in here. We don't have any audience Q&A yet, but we can certainly open it up. Does anyone have any questions? And Maina, your whole story is so inspiring, and you've taken a higher end luxury product that you kind of wouldn't normally think of as having this story behind it. So really thank you for sharing it, and love how you did so much research in finding these types of makers and finding those women to build that into your story. And I think that just makes you stand out so much from all the other brands. So I think you're setting a really good example and very inspiring for not only current working designers, but future designers as well. And like somebody mentioned, we're going to have a lot of students tuning into this from all over the world. So they will be able to watch this at a later time. We've got South Africa, we've got a group in Ghana that's going to be watching in. And so I think it'll be definitely inspiring to all of them. So we have a couple minutes left. I don't see any questions from the audience. Is there any other, did you have more slides, Maina? I think you might have had a couple more things, or you're all set.
I think there's one thing we didn't quite see, which are the cool, like I'm really proud of my little labels. So these are like the little messages I was telling you about in each of the pieces. That's like, for me, it's cool. Like some people don't even know those messages are in the product. So I think when you receive your product or when you see it in store and there's that little added excitement from, you know, from this little like piece of label, really, it's quite cool. So
I love it that it can be used as a bookmark. That's amazing.
Yeah, so not this one, but yeah, the yellow one that you can see here, and there's a different color for each collection, so you can sort of collect them as well. So yeah.
How do you come up with the saying? Do you just
again?
Has its own saying, or each collection has its own saying?
Yeah, each product has its own reminder at the back of the product, and each collection has an overarching theme. So like the two pieces that you can see on the left is from the For Love Against Oblivious collection, and like the first one on the left says, remember that love shouldn't hurt. The one in the middle says, remember that love stands up for what's right. And yeah, like each piece has a different message, and then the collection is an overarching one. And in the ribbons that you can see, like the yellow ribbon you can see here, inside you have the mindset behind each collection written as well. On top of obviously all the care instructions and stuff. But yeah, I think it's also quite nice when you have a brand and you can create something out of something that's like a bit mundane that, you know, people don't really think about. For me, I just hated designing those labels. Like I find them so painful and they're so important, especially if you start wholesaling, like you need to have those labels. So I needed to make them pretty just for myself, to be honest. So I wasn't so bored designing them and like creating like a lot of like 100% polyester and there's a lot.
Hand wash.
Yeah, exactly. Please use a wash bag. Actually, please use a wash bag when you're buying, especially like expensive lingerie. I made sure that you could wash my laundry in the washing machine because I don't understand who's got time to hand wash anything. To use a wash bag and wash at 30 degrees. It's better for your clothes and the environment. And especially if you're putting money in your clothes, like you want them to last.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Maina, where can we find you, or if people want to reach out?
So I was about to say, if like there's no questions now, but if anyone watching this has questions later on, Instagram is probably the best way to reach out to me. So at the Underargument, and yeah, I'll be happy to respond to any questions you can send. There's a form on the website at theunderargument.com, a contact form if you have a longer message that doesn't fit in Instagram, or you want to send anything. So yeah, I'm more than welcome to answer questions at a later point.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And Sonia, thank you for chatting with us.
Thank you.
Our next session is at 2:15, so come back again. We have more great stuff coming up, so be well, and thank you everyone for tuning in. And Maina, thank you for your time. You're in Paris right now, so it's getting late for you, so good evening, and again, appreciate your time.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you both.